Okay, this is the lesson on arrays. So how to use an array in programming, which is another extremely powerful feature that we have within computer programming. We're going to show you how to do it in C# in this video here, and then we're going to use this in a lot of our programs that we're going to write from this point on. So an array is essentially a collection of variables all together under one variable. So that's kind of the best way to describe it. So if you look at this slide here, you'll see that we basically declare one variable, call it an array, and then within that variable there are different elements, and each of those elements is its own variable as well. So in this case here, this looks like an array of 5 elements in total. So it has a length of 5. So you can see, well, this will be more clear when we do the examples, but some key things to know here. The element index is basically the spot that each element occupies in that array. And so they start at 0 and go up through sequentially, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it goes to. Each individual variable is called an element, and all those things together, that is called your array. There's a couple different ways you can declare these. Basically, the basic method here is you say the variable type that you're using, and then the square brackets indicates that it is an array, and then you put a variable name on that. There's also a way to declare where it says there, in this case, integer square brackets, variable name. In this case, they're using my array as the variable name. And they're saying is equal to new int, and then in the square brackets 6. What that's indicating is that it's just creating an array with 6 elements in it altogether. And then there's a couple different ways you can actually assign values to those elements. The one way you can just put it directly in your code is to use the curly brackets and just put in values for each element here. Now that's not very useful, but that is one way to do it, and I'll show you some examples here of the different ways you can set this up and ways that they do become very useful and powerful. So let's look at this. So here is the very first example that I have here. So this is just straight up declaring everything within the code without any user interface of asking the user to add things. So I am basically saying I'm creating an array here. It is an integer array. I'm calling it array number 1. So array 1 is my variable name. And by setting it up this way, curly brackets, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements in it. So I am setting up an integer array of size of 5 elements, and these are the values of each element that goes in there. So I am just all in one line setting that up. That is how I'm declaring my array. So let's look at this. I am going to actually output here. So I'm going to do a write line to the console, and I'm going to say element 2 of array 1 is, and I'm going to print the value of element number 2. So array 1, and then in square brackets I put 2. So that indicates element 2 of this array. So that should be 0, 1, 2. So this right here, this 5, that is element 2 of the array. So I'm basically saying output this value right here. So let's watch this. Element 2 of the array is 5. You can see if I was to change this to a 25. This should now give me a 25. Element 2 of array 1 is 25. So that is how you can directly declare and set up and populate an array, and then how you can access each element that is stored in that array. Okay, so that is the simple form there. Let's look at a more complicated form and a more useful form as well. So one thing I'm going to show here, I had to look this up on the internet of how to do this. I have all this code disabled right here. The ****, that is a multi-line comment. So anything that is between these, it's considered a comment. So this would be the same as commenting out all of this code in between here. If I remove this, that reactivates this code. So I just did that to disable a big section of my code here, so it wasn't showing up. So here we're going to create an array and then populate it in a different method. So this time I'm doing a double. So double array2. So my array name is going to be array2. The elements are going to be doubles. That's the type of variables they are. And then I'm saying is equal to new double 4. So that creates an array of size 4. The elements are all doubles. Okay? So when I create that, they have no value. They're just all going to be zeros in there to start with. And then what I can do is actually put a value in each individual element as I want to. So I'm going to say array2 element 0, 3.2, element 1 is going to be 2.6, element 2 is going to be element 0 plus element 1, element 3 is going to be 2 times element 0. So these are all individual variables you can do things with. So it's like using a lot of different variables, but all kind of under the same name, with just a little a suffix on there. You can think of that element number as a suffix for the variables. They're all basically independent variables, but all kind of lumped together, so they're easier to manage, I guess. And then I'm basically saying element 2 of the array is, and we're going to print out element 2, so that should be the sum of this one and this one, which should be 5.8. There we go, element 2 is 5.8. Okay, so that's another way to create the array and to put values in each of the elements. And then the really powerful way you can do this, I'll remove this comment here, reactivate this code by removing my multi-line comment. Here I'm going to use a loop to populate an array. So this is where things get really interesting. So we're going to get some user data. So we're going to prompt the user. It's going to say, how many friends do you have? And then we are going to get the value they put in. We're going to put that into an integer called n. And then we're going to create a string array called friends. It is going to have an array length of n. So whatever value you put in, that's how long your array is going to be. Then we're going to do a for loop. We're going to go from 0 up to n. So if you said, I have 7 friends, we are going to basically run this loop from 0 through 6. Okay? Which would basically be element 0 through 6. That would basically fill up the array. And we're going to increment by 1 each time. And then every iteration of the loop that we do, we're going to right line, and we're going to say enter the name of friend number. And here I'm doing I plus 1. I could just say I in there, but it's going to start at 0. If that's the case, it's going to go 0 through 6. I want to go 1 through 7, so we're going to say I plus 1. And then whatever they enter in, we're basically going to say put that data into friends, the array, element number I. So that's going to start at 0. So basically the first time through the loop, it's going to say enter in friend number 1. It'll put that at element 0. Next time it'll go through, enter friend number 2. It'll put that in element 1. So basically we're adding these names as they come in. It's almost like, if you think of it, almost like a spreadsheet. Like you're basically putting one of these in each cell in a spreadsheet. So that's going to go through until you hit the end, which is basically the end of your array, which is the number that you entered in here. Once this loop finishes, we're going to do another loop here. So it's going to say your friends are, and then it's going to do a right line running from 0 once again to n. So if you said 7, this will run up until 0 through 6, incrementing by 1 each time, and it's going to basically empty that. It's going to write each element of the array. Okay, so let's watch this one go. So there we go. How many friends do you have? I need to put in a number here. I'm going to say 3. Enter the name of friend number 1. My first friend is named Rob. Friend number 2 is Brandon. Friend number 3 is Dean. Hit enter, and it says your friends are Rob, Brandon, and Dean. So that's element 0, element 1, element 2 of the array output. So that's basically how we can store a bunch of data that's related and then have access to it later on. Okay, so this is a key concept there that we're going to use over and over again in the next couple programs that we do. Okay, so that is how to use arrays. All right, good luck.